About the defense, is that a similar thing? They need more speed. I mean, you saw the 3rd and 14. Chad Henne isn't a guy like Patrick Mahomes that's an elite athlete. Is it fair to say that defense needs speed at the 2nd and 3rd levels of it?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the game; they had three 2nd and 14 or more, 1 2nd and 19, and 1 3rd and ridiculously long that they converted. That's the difference. If you can't get teams off the field when they're in 2nd and 14 situations, you're not going to win many games in the NFL level. And that's why, the Chiefs offense is so deadly, because they can make up yards. That's why the Bills are in the AFC Championship, because they can make up those long yardage situations. It's what we call the margin for error. The margin for error for the Browns offense is relatively small. They get behind the sticks, they get behind a situation, you won't see them convert many of them. The Browns only converted 1 2nd and long into a first down between 2nd and 3rd down. They threw a ball up the right seam on a 2nd and 26 to David Njoku that he caught, if you recall, at the right seam. He jumped up, made a play on it. That's the only one. That's just telling you the Chiefs have always found ways to overcome their mistakes, because they have guys who can get chunk plays at any given time. That's what the Browns have to figure out how to get. Defensively, yeah, they have to add speed. I think they have a good enough linebacker group, and if Jacob Phillips comes along and maybe they add what I call a rover position player who can be a box safety linebacker hybrid type. There's some guys out there of particular intrigue that we will talk about as we get closer to the draft, but they need that player who can play in the box and play physical, be a linebacker type, but also be a guy who can cover in the slot and who can cover tight ends and play an effective curl flat defense and kind of in the intermediate areas. They need more consistency at safety. Ronnie Harrison's a nice part. I think Carl Joseph had some moments, but they need another good safety. Is Grant Delpit going to come back and be that guy? He's dealing with an Achilles injury. When you rupture those things, it's a long process. Keanu Neal in Atlanta is a great safety. It took him 2 years, according to his own impression of how long it took him to feel normal again. I hope Grant gets back this year, but you just never know how the body's going to react to it. So they need to add a safety, in my opinion, whether they draft one or sign one, maybe a Justin Simmons out of Denver if he hits the market, a really good player. And they have to add speed, depth at corner. They need more guys there. They have to go out and get a guy. They have to go out and draft a guy. I don't know what the status of Greedy Williams will be moving forward. There's some questions about that shoulder nerve issue. We don't really know. And they need as many defensive backs to play against the Chiefs, wide receiver depth, and they need as many defensive backs to play against the Bills and the Steelers. Even though Ben is what he is at this point, they still have 4 very good wide receivers. So if you're looking at teams, the Ravens have speed in the perimeter. You got to really match up with who, the Browns have to look at it as we're one of the 5 best teams in the AFC. How do we continue to do that, and how do we get over the hump? Find ways to beat KC, find ways to beat Buffalo, find ways to continue to push for your division championship, beating Pittsburgh and Baltimore. How are you going to do that? You got to have multifaceted defensive backs who can play the run, who can play the pass, who can play with speed, and you got to add to that defensive line and create pressure with just your front 4. So the playoffs, you look at Myles Garrett and some of these guys, and it's why aren't they getting home? Well, they didn't cover long enough for anybody up front to get home. So there's that element too. Got to cover for long enough to allow those guys up front to get home. So it'll be fascinating to see how they add. They'll get Andrew Billings back off of the COVID list, and they'll obviously have to add somebody to take over for Olivier Vernon, as that situation with his Achilles injury is so unfortunate. So they'll have to draft or sign somebody at that spot. So a ton of assets will go to the defensive side of the football without a doubt.